Here we go, baby, rounding out the Seth MacFarlane animated sitcom trilogy with the final installment, that of The Cleveland Show, a spin-off of Family Guy featuring that show's Cleveland Brown and their family in hilarious hijinks with classic MacFarlane comedy staples like cutaway gags and awkward segments. Now, you might be saying that, isn't it weird for me, a white person, to be analysing a show featuring predominantly black characters? And to that, I say that, well, the show was created by 3 white guys. This episode in particular was written by white guys and directed by white guys, so I reckon I might actually be just fine. With that out of the way and myself defended, the episode in question is of course Season 1's Episode 7, A Brown Thanksgiving, and the character to look out for in it is Auntie Mama, who we will get into the politics of that design and choice later on. For now, that's the intro done. Why don't we watch some television?
There's old friends and new friends and even a band.
Okay, off the bat, the show does the immediate Family Guy-esque joke stuff of an inane series of references to Thanksgiving specials on, like, old TV with guests and singing, and I know this is meant to be an analysis of the trans elements, this video, but is this funny? It ran on for like a whole minute, and the entire time I couldn't figure out what I was meant to be laughing at. Is the joke that it just kind of keeps going and it keeps saying stuff? Is that where the comedy is?
With special guests, Crystal Gale, Waylon Flowers and Madam, Heisman Trophy winner Tony Dorsett.
I watched a lot of these MacFarlane shows when I was a teenager, and I'm starting to think that they were just mostly background noise with the occasional comedy amidst the droning sound of just saying words and doing things.
Like Lee Harvey Oswald working from home.
What do you think, Detective McBackerson?
Yeah, no, they seem unrelated and random and probably accidents.
What was that?
Like, kids are pretty easy to please, honestly, and I've just realised that saying words and doing things is pretty much a description of my YouTube channel. That's worrying. But at least I don't do shitty cutaways on hyperbolic similes. Mostly because the budget doesn't stretch that far, but also because that's hack comedy. And I'm better than that. Maybe. So, we skip a bit ahead here because more minutes of just inane crap pass before we finally get the entrance of Auntie Mama, the character we want to keep our eagle eyes out for, as this Thanksgiving turns into a fightsgiving between Cleveland's parents and each other, and Cleveland's dad, and Cleveland's mum, and Cleveland's wife Donna, and Donna's daughter Roberta. It's a whole darn mess, a take on the fact that putting family together does often just, well, it brings up old rivalries, old problems that are between these people that have spent much of their life crammed together by virtue of blood. Auntie Mama's first action on the scene is to defuse the situation by making a fart joke and then farting. And you might be seeing now what this character is sort of a reference to. And a reference that is not automatically a transgender thing, which is the Big Mama trilogy, starring Martin Lawrence as the FBI agent who goes undercover as an older woman to obtain their goal. The goal which varies from film to film, but it's mostly about, like, fighting crime.
Oh, not in Big Mama's house. Oh, shit.
This stereotyping, though, derided as it so often is for the way that it leans into representation of big black women as a form of media consumption comedy that appeals to mostly white audiences, as well as having those women be played by men in fat suits, a conversation that is laid out within both Emily Fox Cale's Body Shot, Hollywood and the Culture of Eating Disorders, as well as Cecily Bowen's article, The Problematic History of Men Playing Fat Black Women. Yes, I did do my readings for this video, okay? Well, that stereotyping does also lean quite heavily on comedy that is made at the expense of transgender or cross-dressing people. It's a lesson in the fact that a transgender person does not have to be in the script or exist as a character for their identity to be taken apart and used for mockery. Stuff like Big Mama, Medea, Martin, all of which are portrayals of black women played by and written by black men, incorporate all the aspects of harmful and damaging stereotypes that are perceived of that group of people, and play it up for laughs in movies and shows where the intention is not for audiences to question or to think deeply about the ramification of reiterating those stereotypes. This isn't some grand satirical play, it's just funny comedy that's very surface level and shallow. And this is where intersectionality comes into play as something worth understanding. How the inclusion of ideas like this can reverberate out to impact many different social and cultural groups that are tied up in the characterization. So while, yes, people in the comments who are immediately leaping at the chance to say, well, this isn't a trans character, so why are you calling it a trans episode, you bloody liar? You are correct in that first part of the statement. Though the second part showcases a real inability to get subtext, and the idea of allegory and metaphor and reference and cross-cultural dissemination, which is all just fancy words for me to say that you're an idiot. Back to the video in question, and Cleveland's father, LeVar, is hitting on Auntie Mama, despite the fact that he is meant to be back with Cleveland's mother, though this ties into the infidelity that LeVar is shown to have had in the past.
Donna, you remember my father who left my mother for a Waffle House waitress twice?
Auntie Mama is shown to be excessively sexual, aggressively so, which is worth mentioning because of its ties to those previous representations like Medea and Big Mama. And I guess that for the creation of this character, the writing team of Cleveland Show just basically watched those films and then copied them with no real alterations. Is it weirder to have this stereotype be written by and directed by white guys? Is it stranger when it's removed further from the community, but it still incorporates the exact same attitudes, has the exact same punchlines? I mean, it's certainly not better, right? But within that, I think you even see how those things work, right? White people see them, and then they just copy it. They don't think about it, they don't try to consider, oh, maybe this is having ramifications or it has an impact on that community that maybe we shouldn't be agreeing with or shouldn't be inserting into our brains and then just blurting out in our own shows. Finally though, 7 minutes into the episode, we get our real link to any kind of trans stuff at all, when Cleveland is putting out the rubbish and sees Auntie Mama peeing standing up, commenting on the fact that he sees her penis before realising what he just said.
I can see Auntie Mama's penis. Auntie Mama's penis?
Also, before it cuts to the revelation noise and jump to black that accompanies such shocking news, what's going on in this shot? We're meant to believe here that Auntie Mama is peeing standing up, but she is facing away from the toilet, or at least the toilet is animated behind her. Unless she is, leaning over it to get her body in front of the cistern and, bending around so that she can pee down into it? I don't see how this works. Also, why is she peeing from the side of the toilet? Have the animators and directors for Cleveland Show ever seen someone go to the toilet before? I don't want to get stuck on this, but I already have, and my brain has been trying to do the maths on it for about 10 minutes real time right now. I stood up, went to the toilet, and tried to figure out how you could make this work, and the facts are that it just plain doesn't. Anyway, our next scene is the next day, at the kitchen table for breakfast, when Cleveland is trying his darndest to get Auntie Mama to reveal that she has a penis, so that he can figure out what is going on there, because people can't keep their fucking noses to themselves and stop rooting around in someone else's private business.
Let's play a game. Everybody say something weird about themselves.
Jokes are made here with LeVar talking about how Auntie Mama is a real woman because she likes football. The joke for the audience being that we know, like Cleveland, that she has a penis, and therefore that's what makes her not a real woman. Remember, we currently have no information about her otherwise. As it currently stands, she could just be a trans woman. But that has never stopped Seth MacFarlane from diminishing and insulting their womanhood in the past, so why would it do it now? But we also get to see here how Auntie Mama is quite a big part of Donna's life, as she talks about how she helped to influence her as a younger woman and give her advice.
And what did I tell you back then?
You told me that I should fly like a bird because you can't keep your heart in a cage. And then you farted.
Which is what she does now, a kind of positive feminine role model for the character, even though that whole bit is a tad ruined by Cleveland's snide little jab at the end of it.
That woman can convince me of anything.
I'll say.
Cleveland then attempts to tell Donna about what he saw of Auntie Mama, because of that whole not being able to stick to your own shit thing we mentioned earlier, and Donna explains how important Auntie Mama is to her, and that revelation makes Cleveland relent on outing Auntie Mama. While it certainly isn't perfect, that if Auntie Mama was less important to Donna, then Cleveland would see no problem in doing what he is doing, at least he is considerate enough of his wife and her stability to not go through with it.
I don't know what I'd do without my Auntie Mama. Or if my image of her was changed in any way.
She's a handsome woman.
Yeah, that's a pretty low-hanging, backhanded concession by me there towards this episode and this show, but it's all I have for it so far. And the very, very sexual interactions between LeVar and Auntie Mama continue, with Auntie Mama being very encouraging and acting in a way that I think some revelation down the road might make quite fucking horrifying in retrospect, but let's leave that horror for when it happens. All of this is happening directly in front of Cleveland's mother, who is understandably angry about seeing her shitty partner who cheated on her a bunch of times in the past continue to be a shitty person who is willing to cheat on her again. A leopard really doesn't change his spots. And I have to stop us again, because the Cleveland show does this joke just here to camera.
That's one bald pussy.
And is the comedy supposed to be cringe anti-comedy? Is that how it works? Or is it just such base humour that appeals to teenagers for whom those jokes are not cringe? Am I just too old to get this anymore? Regardless of what the answer is, the truth is that it just isn't good to watch, and that's probably the biggest flaw of all, and maybe a reason why it got cancelled after 4 seasons. Cleveland is watching his father go up to the bathroom with Auntie Mama, and is trying to figure out what to do in the situation. Though his concern is not with the fact of how this is impacting on his mother, his concern is with his father, with the fact that his father is gonna, I don't know, get surprised by a dick.
I'm worried about your mother.
I'm worried about my father.
A concern that is represented by his angel and devil showing up to tell him to either do the right thing and warn his dad of Auntie Mama's genitalia situation, or to let his father wrangle that dangle. Show's words, not mine. Because Cleveland hates his father. Is that really the takeaway the show is having here? This is the internal debate at play. The question of whether a straight man deserves to get shocked by a woman with a dick because he's a bad person or not. Like the idea of hitting on and getting with a trans body is some sort of punishment for straight men. That is actually kind of reflective of everything I have ever seen of Seth MacFarlane's humour towards trans people, so I'm honestly not surprised by it. It's still not nice to see it, but I'm not shocked. Especially when that very logic is the kind of thing that leads to straight men enacting horrific violence on trans women that they are attracted to. The trans panic defense. And even worse here, a kind of violence that very often leads to death for black trans women. The kind of person that Auntie Mama is a somewhat stand-in for right here. This really does reflect those terrible attitudes that have consistently existed for decades and have led us to a place where being trans, where being a woman with a penis, is so heavily mocked, and the people who might end up with a trans woman are so heavily mocked too, that it does encourage actions of the worst kind as some sort of retribution. There is, of course, the funny little song as well that calls Auntie Mama a man due to her biological situation, which is just par for the course.
Oh, here she comes. She's a man.
This whole thing is really, really transphobic. It's really taking a lot of digs at Auntie Mama because she's a woman with a dick, supposedly, and it's depressing that such a thing is almost the standard for sitcoms and animated sitcoms of this time period. Is the standard for McFarlane's style of humour that infected everything for like 15 years. This scene continues, no matter how much I wish it wouldn't, with Cleveland doing the right thing by telling his father that he can't do this, awkwardly remembering the whole, oh, my dad came with my mum and this is hurting her, as a way of getting his father to stop without having to say that Auntie Mama has a penis. Though LeVar then proceeds to insult Cleveland.
Your mama ain't a woman. You're more of a woman than she is. Your boobs are bigger, your ass is rounder, and your mustache ain't as thick.
And that Auntie Mama is a real woman. Do you get it? Do you get it yet? The joke. It's funny because LeVar keeps commenting on Auntie Mama's womanhood when we know that she has a penis and that therefore makes her a man. Insert laughter here and comedy awards, please. Thank you very much. Send them to me. Yum yum yum. Comedy awards. To which Cleveland then takes option 2 of telling his father to enjoy himself because, well, now he has been a bad dude again, and therefore he deserves the punishment of almost sex or sex with a trans woman / stand-in for a trans woman currently, because this characterization is based on other people who were clearly defined as men pretending to be women for a specific purpose, so I can hazard a guess at where this plotline is going. So the family is waiting at the table for LeVar and Auntie Mama to finish up whatever is going to come out of that situation. I mean, LeVar is portrayed as a hard, masculine man. What do you think his response to finding out that the woman he's interested in has a penis is going to be? Do you think it's going to be measured and understanding, or do you think it's going to be another one of those statistics that we mentioned earlier? Cleveland is gloating about what he's allowed to happen, a fact that leads to Rallo, the younger son, calling him out for it, and saying how, even as a 5-year-old, he knows what is meant to be in people's pants.
Man, I'm 5. Sitting on laps is my job. I know what's supposed to be there and what's not.
The gender binary and its enforcement is some really fucked shit. And Cleveland and Rollo then both continue having a laugh over how funny this is gonna be. Like LeVar hooking up with a trans woman is a prank or something, with Cleveland even referencing in a sing-song voice the crying game.
Oh, it'll be worth it. Crying game.
Do you know what happens in the crying game? Well, an IRA soldier hooks up with a hairstylist only to find out she is a trans woman and has a penis before proceeding to punch her in the face. Are we sure this is really the kind of reference we want to be making, considering, I don't know, all the facts and levity with which the show is treating this situation? It just shows a real lack of consideration, I think, from these cis writers and directors towards the content of their shows in how it impacts or relates to a minority's experience. I mean, they really, truly do not care at all about having trans women as anything other than jokes or monsters. And then Cleveland vomits at finding out that his father actually had sex with Auntie Mama. Because, I mean, having characters vomit at the idea of trans women being sexual worked for Seth MacFarlane and Family Guy, why change it now? And holy shit, the vomit scene just keeps going. It just keeps going and going. Every time they say some kind of sexual thing to each other, and Cleveland vomits more, and it keeps happening, we get it, okay? We get it. A trans woman is an idol of disgust for straight men, is a figure of revulsion, whose sexual life is meant to be seen in as negative a light as physically possible. That the reaction must be either violence or your body physically recoiling from the concept. Also, warning, there's going to be about 10 seconds of just vomiting, so if you don't want to see that, skip it. Trust me, trans people sure get it. We get an unending stream of reminders of that fact from fictional media and real-life people who love to do the unnecessary steps of ruining another person's day because shows like this told them that how they feel is right and should be expressed. Fuck Seth MacFarlane, fuck the Cleveland Show, and fuck the whole bloody system that made this a normal inclusion in a sitcom. Screw all of it. So Cleveland then confronts Auntie Mama, and does the only thing I guess he can think of to get to the truth, which is grabbing her penis. To which Auntie Mama drops into a super deep masculine voice, and explains that, yeah, he is really a man, and there used to be Donna's Uncle Kevin until Donna was 6, and he realised that she needed a strong female role model in her life, to which he then became Auntie Mama, and has been doing so for the past 36 years and 19 weeks?
So when she was about 6, Uncle Kevin became Auntie Mama. 36 years and 19 weeks later, here we are.
Wait, hold up 2 seconds. What? Cleveland asks what the hell happened with his dad, to which Kevin, Auntie Mama, explains that when you have been doing this as long as he has, you learn how to hide that shit well. What? No, wait, hold on, wait, seriously. I know that Uncle Kevin / Auntie Mama then explains that he / she will be moving on because they see that Donna is in good hands, which is the show's way of saying this character is never coming back. But stop the train. What is happening? Has this guy been pretending to be a woman for 36 years and doing it so much and so consistently that they have had to learn how to have sex with men without those men finding out that fact? Because that can't just have been when he was around Donna, right? Like, Uncle Kevin must have been pretending to be Auntie Mama at multiple different points for this to have come up, for it to have happened, for them to have learned that. In which case, what? I'm sorry, a cis man does not pretend to be a woman for 36 years just because their niece needs a strong female role model. And that cis man certainly doesn't have sex with a bunch of dudes while pretending to be a woman to maintain the facade, even when that niece isn't around. I don't know what Uncle Kevin / Auntie Mama are, but you can see here my point about the way that the character acts as this extremely exaggerated version of a hyper-sexualized large black woman, and how that does fall into the same pitfalls the representation it's based on also fell into. I mean, it is literally just a word-for-word copy of that, with more transphobia included, because of presumably Seth MacFarlane's grubby little hands. When Auntie Mama is leaving, Cleveland also stops his son from hugging her, which could be just part of the natural rhythm those two have, Cleveland Jr. being overly sensitive and emotionally available, and Cleveland trying to curb his son's more feminine side in favour of masculinity, or it could be Cleveland stopping his son from hugging the man in a dress out of, well, transphobia. I choose to believe the least positive interpretation because this is Seth MacFarlane, and that seems about right. Auntie Mama also tells LeVar that she isn't a one-man woman or a one-town woman, and that it was a one-off thing, which seems to really break LeVar's heart to see her leave. Only for Cleveland to then take his father outside and giddily, excitedly explain to him what was really going on, which leads to LeVar vomiting all over the place. Also, yeah, warning, more vomiting scenes coming up. You can skip this again if you don't like vomiting. This might be the worst one yet.
You had sex with a man.
Cleveland really rubs in the fact that LeVar slept with a man. Really makes sure that we all understand what is going on here and what we should be taking away from it, before just really sealing the deal by chucking out the tranny slur.
She's had a hard day watching you play grab-ass with a tranny.
And that's the episode. What can I really say here in this conclusion that I haven't already said? This is probably one of the worst trans episodes I've done on this entire channel. It features almost no redeeming elements like the Family Guy episode at least did. In no small part because the main trans character isn't even trans. It's literally just a man pretending to be a woman for decades. So don't even bother giving her any kind of moment or speech to define herself, because herself is really a himself. And yet it still used the same transphobic gags that Family Guy did around the sex and the vomiting. It threw out the tranny word, which not even Family Guy did.
But I am a woman trapped in a man's body. And while I'm in Quahog, I plan to have a sex change operation.
Oh, come on, just be gay.
I mean, this thoroughly sucked. Seth MacFarlane outdid himself here. He really managed to find rock bottom with this one. And I think maybe that's the perfect ending to the trilogy of animated sitcoms that he did. Seth MacFarlane happily engaged with and abused the lowest common denominator form of comedy around many groups. In this case, especially trans women, as well as large black women. And in doing so, he really defined a generation of teenage boys who would watch and laugh at his shows, who would take on board messages about how they should consider minorities, and what the appropriate reactions for circumstances are. Seth MacFarlane facilitated the disgust and violence from straight men to trans women, consistently throughout his work in this genre, and I think that no other single mainstream, politically supposedly on-the-fence creator has had such a hand in being a leading force for making trans people an object of disgust in the stuff that they made. Or at least none that I have found yet. Though I am always ready to be surprised by the depths of shit, pure shit, that exists in the heart of straight male Hollywood. The Cleveland show was bad. It got cancelled after 4 seasons because it never really managed to find a good place to be on its network, and didn't really have the same appeal that its contemporaries did. But the Cleveland show can at least take solace in having the worst trans episode I've ever covered. The award for that is never coming, and never existed in the first place because I don't want to reward shit like this, but there you go. Make one yourself and put it on a wall somewhere, I guess. Anyways, fuck all of that. And if you liked this video, then the best way to show that is by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Anything to help me on that slow climb to 100k subscribers, and the point where I can actually tell the rest of my family that I'm a real YouTuber now. If you really like what I've done here, then you can also make sure to remind Seth MacFarlane at every possible opportunity how fucking terrible the stuff that he contributed to transmedia is. Like, never let him live this down. That would make me really happy. Otherwise, supporting me on my Patreon and here as a member on YouTube is a good way to ensure that I get paid for the work that I do, covering stuff like rent, power, internet and food, all of which allow me to exist and make these videos, if that's something that you want to keep happening. The names of those in the $5 and up category are scrolling past the screen right now. And I really do appreciate everyone on there for making it so I get to survive and do content for a living. Especially right now as I'm currently moving out of this place and having the fun experience of a much more expensive rent coming up. Living costs are just right fucked in New Zealand right now. Other than all of that, thank you for watching this video and hope you have a great day.